Roundtable is basically the genesis of this is to bring together the ecosystem and the manufacturing leaders like you to share what are the trends and technology trends which are impacting the manufacturing, and mainly the digitalization, which is one of the biggest trends as we see.
Very recently, we had conducted a survey right, within the country and globally on emerging trends on smart manufacturing, right? And there were uh, revelations that came through. And one of the key things that we noticed there was whatever was a challenge last year, it may not be the challenge this year. I think 95% of the people say yes. 94% of the people says, hey, workforce is a challenge, right? But we'll figure that out. Change management is a challenge. Most importantly, everyone wants to start off, right? The area is quality, right? Because traceability has become so important now, right? Instead of just losing the entire batch, right? You at least know, right, where to pinpoint and right, what to eliminate. Right, so that's becoming a very, very important discussion.
We've invested close to $4 billion US dollars in last 4 or 5 years partnering and acquiring companies. Some of the key acquisitions that I want to talk about today, one is Plex, which I'm going to present a little bit, is an acquisition that Rockwell did in 2021, a $2.2 billion all cash. Plex is a smart manufacturing platform.
When we talk about smart manufacturing, what are the metrics you use to measure the success of your smart manufacturing strategies?
We are in growth phase today. Means India GDP is increasing. We have engines which is produced roughly around 90 seconds. We will be coming to less than a minute, 52 seconds we will be producing. So generally when it is growth, the thinking is becoming fatter. But our way of thinking is to be lean and slim, and you enhance the manufacturing efficiency during growth phase. This is the objective. That means we don't want to add lot of resources during growth. So smart technology, when we say smart manufacturing, whether it is digitization, or whether it is autonomous logistics, or whether it is connected machines, or whether it is robot or cobots, these should enable this vision and mission.
Shop floor. We have a challenge because as a typical Indian companies always have that kind of workman problem, and the middle management as such, that agility, they are not very stable. They go here, there. Today's generation also difficult. So what we decided to immediately introducing to a digital things, and we started practice TPM. So I am driving TPM at corporate level. So I am going through all the plants, Kubedra's plant also. Many plants I am visiting, and different, that two verticals have different challenges actually. So what we did, preparing the shop floor. That is what. So preparation is what to reduce the variations. Again, understanding losses in what is capacity loss, what is our available capacity. So these things are how many machines are there. So how much of machines are breaking down and how much. So today we are doing a traditional preventive maintenance or come some advanced level. But today the language is changing. My company after 6 or 7 years of TPM adoption.
When you implement the connected factory or visual factory or smart manufacturing, these are different terms. I would like to ask you, what are the typical challenges you face and how do you overcome them?
And I'm not going to speak about Mahindra Automotive, right? I'm going to speak about another company, which is Mahindra Excello.
Excello.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is a tier 1 to Mahindra Automotive. And the reason is the resource pool is very different for the two organizations. Mahindra Excello would fit the conversation, and in that context, I would use Excello as we were contemplating that Mahindra Automotive is at this level in terms of smart manufacturing, using systems and technologies for many, many, many years. Excello feeds into Mahindra as tier 1 supplier, steel processing. Now, with the increase in demand and increase in virtually 3 shifts a day, all the plants, and 3 new or greenfield plants coming up, how do you address one standardization, data, experience, all that we spoke of, across all those plants. And when we started on this journey so one thing was clear, we need to go for automation, we need to go for data, otherwise for how long can you generate information manually? Interestingly, in the last 5-6 years, a lot has changed. And a lot of conversation then was data acquisition. How do we do it? We end up doing it, we spend money, but nothing works. But the data acquisition story with cloud coming in, with solutions coming in, has become much more accessible to everyone and at high level of compute. So when we now look back and say, I need to implement automation, it's a lot more easier step one than it was 5-6 years ago, is my belief. And having gone through that journey. Two, but what do you still prepare for? As I think you mentioned, openness to change. That's the biggest one. So while top down everyone's agreed on to this, is the last man standing in tune with what you're trying to do. So even before getting into implementation, we would go and have this conversation with shop floor folks. And I think as we are moving into automating Excelo's journey, they are co-creators. So all plant heads, their immediate one down, and even some of those situational leaders, there's someone who's good at data, there's someone who's good at a welding process, there's someone who's good at a stamping process. Those are part of the core team.
Can you elaborate on a specific case where the integration, again, Neeraj mentioned about integration, of real-time tracking analytics has led to significant breakthroughs or improvements in your manufacturing operations?
I'll give you two parts or two different examples. One is a solution that we have offered, because we make the mother machines which are used in the automotive industry and also the general engineering industry, energy segment, everywhere, but largely in automotive space. The leading OEM of two-wheeler in India, an Indian company in the outskirts of Delhi, they wanted a solution where the key components of the two-wheeler, primarily the 5C components which are made, and the mother machines have to be interconnected. So they have various manufacturing cells. So they want to try with one cell in which they had more than 30 machines, the machining centers, and all custom built for them. And we gave a solution where each of those machines had smart devices, and all the machines were interconnected, and this customer is able to track, for example, the cycle time of machining a component, the tool life, because we're also supplying the cutting tools, so the tool life, the ambient temperature within the machine. So accordingly, the chiller temperature goes up and down, because morning, afternoon, and evening, the temperatures vary. And if the temperatures vary, then what happens? The machine thermodynamics also change. And accordingly, what happens? The accuracy of the component varies. So we had given them chiller units, which would take the ambient temperature, internal and external, accordingly ensure that the environment inside is kept stable. And then they were able to do predictive maintenance. So a host of advantages they got. And then they connected all the 30 odd machines, and then we gave them the data output. And their IT team actually worked with us, and then they picked up all this data and created it a very beautiful user interface where you can see all those 30 odd machines and what's happening, and various sub-menus. So if any one particular topic you want to deep dive, so they can do it. So that's something that we did in Kennametal, and we're trying to popularize that.
In automotive industry, if you see, every time you get issues, okay? So if you have a batch issue or some seasonal issue, the first customer challenge is can you do a prediction? Can you do a forecasting? What's going to be an impact? You have many tools, okay? You have statistical tools, but then you need some expertise, and then it is also an error prone. So the person, if he's selecting a wrong option, then you land up into a mess. So what we did is we did an automation of this. So you just need to put an input data on a button click. It runs all the various types of statistical tools, linear, non-linear, you name it, and you get an output. Particularly Tenneco, the business unit, what I represent, we manufacture shocks and observers. We have moved from a culture wherein, okay, from the data we used to say, good to know. Okay, yeah, this is good trend, this trend is there, and we know, okay, this is the analysis. But now we have moved to must act. So the idea is, what is data telling, and then we start working it. We have gone one step ahead. In fact, all our AOP budgeting, the planning what we do for warranty, is now based on these decisions. So this is something which we are driving, and we now plug in the required budget in the P&L, so we are protecting our P&L.
She said sustainability is the new digital. And on this point, I would love to have Neha's views and Girish's on how smart manufacturing technologies are aiding your organization's goal towards sustainability.
Past, primarily sustainability meant that, okay, I saved money by using less power. But that has evolved a lot. And this is something that's going to be there, till 2050 and beyond, right? In terms of how do we manage and structure things for future generations. Sustainability today, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a global perspective because those are the kind of roles that I have been in, is about, 3 types of emissions: scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Scope 1 is about direct emissions that we do based out of our manufacturing facilities and other activities that we do. Scope 2 is indirect emissions, which is what we purchase. And when purchased energy, which is, primarily the power that you need in your factories. Scope 3 is, again, indirect, but that's what we procure externally, and, how do we link that to emissions, greenhouse emissions overall. Now, scope 1 and scope 2 is like the biggest chunk of the pie in terms of greenhouse gases, and scope 2 is the highest, which is, purchased energy. And how this connects to bottom line and being a little more futuristic on how it will connect to how businesses will operate in future as well. If we look globally, EU has these, it's more like a front runner of regulations and everything. In 2026, they have this carbon tax regulation that's coming in, which means that manufacturers will have to pay carbon tax for anything that moves across borders that's either procured or manufactured in their facilities. And that carbon tax calculation is dependent on being able to prove your emissions, because that footprint leads to, and then how that caters into your total manufacturing cost, and then how that's calculated. So being a little ahead of the game in terms of what type of solutions do we need using the data that we have from, whatever solutions we have today for smart manufacturing, IoT sensors, and whatever we can get from our suppliers, to be able to, manage that once it's there. And it's not going to be just EU, other governments will follow suit. So how do we prepare ahead of the game for that? Because that's going to be crucial. And then of course, that's primarily my take on sustainability. And then we cannot boil the ocean. So how do we break it down into, smaller parts, and then focus on, one problem statement at a time, given that there is a lot of data that's there in organizations, especially complex organizations that have, grown inorganically with, disparate, fragmented systems, some legacy, some modern. So how do we make sense of that, building that roadmap strategically, as well as, connecting it to when the rubber hits the road, what will it really mean? So that's going to be, so smart manufacturing is going to be the way, and, being sustainable, being able to, positively impact bottom line with responsible manufacturing is crucial.
So there are few ways we are implementing it. It's very much possible to do. One is, can we track the energy consumption across different demand centers in a plant? So typically, if you have if you have furnace, if you have compressors, chillers, they are the biggest guzzlers of energy. So we can have solutions, or we have solutions where we can track the efficiency of those equipments on a real-time basis and see where we are going out of the limits. Sometimes the consumption increases, but you don't know whether it has proportionately increased to the production requirement, or is it because of some inefficiency has crept in? So smart solution actually help us do that. We implemented a SCADA-based energy consumption on these major data centers 2 years back. It helped us reduce energy intensity by over 9% last year. This year the target is 5%. So what we said, the CBAM is really driving us as an organization to push towards reduction of energy consumption. So that's more on the level 2. Level 3, of late we have started seeing customers coming to us and asking commitments on what's our commitment on level 3 reduction by 2030. Because they are saying we have given commitment to stock market, now you also need to help us. Today, level 3 mapping is happening more on a declaration basis, but very soon is going to go on a tracking basis. So we'll need to have a connectivity with our suppliers to track what the proportion of the renewable energy they're consuming in their portfolio, link it to their SAP or link it to the ERP to actually track if they're actually going on a renewable purchase, because that's what ultimately our commitment is going to be. Yeah. And if you have this connection in the ERPs, it actually helps us know whether are we on track or not. So that's on the energy part. On the water part, we have taken this initiative across SK for the first time in Bangalore to make our entire plant water neutral. Because Bangalore, you will know, we are in a red zone, we are scarce on water. So we have taken a challenge that we will convert this entire plant to water neutral. That is, whatever is the rainfall that is happening on our plant, only that much quantity of water we'll use. So what we have done is put the digital meters wherever required, started tracking it on a SCADA, and I'll tell you, within first 6 months, we have been able to bring down consumption by 50%. Wow. The phenomenal reduction. That plan is how do we go further and ensure that we go to 100% neutrality. That, for example, for our Bangalore plant, we'll be saving water for close to 3,000 families for the entire year. That's the water we can save, and it's not as difficult. I mean, yeah, some hit and run, but having this online monitoring, tracking really helps us bring that dimension of focus on water neutrality. And the secret there, it also helps the bottom line. We thought we are doing investment, but in reality, it also saves a lot of cost if you are focusing on water neutrality.
On the visibility and traceability, you worked in various plants of Tata Motors before and now Altigreen. How is your experience in using these advanced technologies for plant visibility and traceability, and especially in the segment you operate in where traceability is so important?
So it's extremely important. We already know how visibility and traceability has been helping in the areas of, let's say, product recall, for example.
Yes.
If you have a problem in the field, how do you narrow down to that batch which might have caused the problem? While all this is being done, what is interestingly coming up is, something which is called as digital product passport. Since I'm into EV now, so this is one regulation which is going to come for batteries. For example, each of the batteries, and I think you spoke about that, each of the batteries are required to have something called a digital battery passport, which means it will capture the birth of the battery, which components went into manufacturing of that, the processes that went into it, and the sustainability data with respect to that, and how this data is captured. This is also coming from the EU norms of circularity on how this battery can be used once, twice, thrice for different applications, from automotive to something else, and therefore this digital passport is going to be very, very key now going forward. And therefore this is one traceability which is further how your customers are going to use it and how the customer is going to pass it on to other customers, so that ultimately you are going to hit the objective of circularity and therefore go the path of sustainability. I thought this is something interesting, and by 2026 it's going to be a regulation in EU, and obviously we'll have to catch up.
On traceability, and you have multiple plants, multiple manufacturing, and various products which goes to different OEMs. Would you like to share your views on visibility as well as traceability?
We are serving to automotive industry to the tune of 85% of our business. So the parts, engine gears, primary gears we give, and many other transmission parts we give. And of course, all of you will understand the challenge and need for the traceability. when it comes to automotive industry. When there is a small complaint comes from a customer, the entire batch need to be quarantined or segregated for something. So it has been a big nuisance for us all these years. And with the SAP, with the batch coding, the heat batch correlation, again, we are not able to fine tune it to a greater extent. So there is a challenge. So and the visibility of batches available here and there are easily trackable in SAP system. But again, we feel it is challenging our customers' expectation. So we have a challenge as of now in this particular area. So we are looking for a good solutions to support us in this respect. And especially with respect to traceability, many customers insist to a micro level. For example, I take the clue from Mr. Rajshekhar. He was mentioning that even the ambient variation, morning to evening, and we have many things happening around us. I am actually getting present to his points. In our gear manufacturing, the variation comes in the seasonal things. We have been wondering whether it is a seasonal issue or raw material related issue or some other heat treatment related issue. We have been jumping corner to corner to find out the solutions.
Could you give us some examples of how these advanced technologies have helped you in boosting productivity?
150 by 150 PCB, there are more than 650 to 800 components that could be populated on this small size. So for us, the smart manufacturing, the connected devices are so very key right from the time we invert the material inside. Today, if you look at our warehouses, the state-of-art warehouses we have, those were the days when we used to call that a place for everything and everything in its place. Today, in our warehouses, those concepts are gone actually, because every single tray, we have a carousel, a vertical carousel. So every tray in a carousel has got an RFID. We scan the RFID, we scan the PDF 417 label on the electronic components we receive. We just put it wherever there is place in the warehouse actually. Yeah, there are more than, let's say, 40,000 plus components, electronic components of various types and sizes and from various suppliers actually. But the SAP, the ERP would always help us to guide to the right component. The FIFO is maintained, yeah, the first in, first round is maintained. So, and as I was telling you, there are minimum 2.5 dozen customers that we serve from our plant. So thousands of components, there is a demand going in from our shop floor through the MES. So we have the Pudu cobots, it's an AGV, it's a small AGV. So the cobots will pick up the part sometime. If it is an operator, it's an operator. Otherwise, the cobots can do the job. It's a repetitive one. Put it on the AGV. AGV will bring, those are smart AGVs, it can directly bring the components to the place, to the line from where the request is going through actually. Yeah. So this is the full smart industry 4.0 systems that we have in our electronic, because for an electronic industry, to operate in a very leaner space, okay, and do the quick turnaround and then have this kind of customer lines supplying multiple product lines. So it's very difficult actually. If you look at our cycle times, we are operating in let's say the smallest component is just 3.2, 3.4 seconds. And the biggest one could be 11, 12 seconds is the cycle time at which the products are churned out in our SMT lines, the front end lines actually. Yeah. Coming to OE, our complete information through the PLCs is pushed into a middleware that is the EvaProd. EvaProd is the quality control tool that our quality engineers have got. This is a middleware. So all the process controls are keyed in there. Nobody will have access to tamper, to do any changes. Only authorized person can go make any changes in the EvaProd tool. So when the machine takes the data, let's say it could be even in the placement, when the component is picked and placed onto a PCB, there is something called as a kissing force. That means with that accuracy, the component need to be placed onto an a board actually, because if the placement is very harsh, then the solder will get splashed. Okay, that may lead into some defects actually. Yeah, so the forces are in micronewtons. So even this need to be calculated. The machine picks up this forces, sends it to our EvaProd, and the EvaProd pushes it to our MES server actually. So if you look at every day, there are millions of data, that we capture in our MES server actually, millions of data. So at any point of time, because we are obligated to keep minimum 10 years of information to our customer. So at any point of time, there is a field failure, we should be in a position to drill down to the last information that is available in our MES server. So as I told you, it is 650 components. This may be supplied from, let's say, 1,000 plus suppliers actually, because for single component there could be more supplier. Let's say if it is a chip component, I may get a chip component from ST Micro in Malta in Europe, or I may get the same component from Malaysia, or the same component could be coming from Taiwan actually. We don't know. So the suppliers are same. So if he has got stock in Taiwan, then I may order the components from Taiwan. If you say that I do not have anything in my warehouses, I will look at Malta and I'll see if, even though it is expensive and should not have to stop the customer line, then I'll be ordering the material from Malta actually. So if you look at every single component, even the part number is same. If the location varies, then we'll have the different SAP codes for that, but the logistics codes will differ actually. So all this information need to be there, because if I say that this particular component, instead of saying Malta, then my SAP information or my ERP information is there, it says no, you picked it up from Taiwan, then I'll be giving wrong information to my customer actually. That should not happen. That's why millions of bytes of data, that we store in our servers, and this informations are always kept for minimum 10 years, yeah. But if you look at our cockpit, the dashboard, the complete information, it could be the OE information. Within the OE, it could be the performance, or it could be the FPY informations. Okay, so if I tell you the FPY information in that PCBA, okay, every component has got minimum 2 joints, because if you place a resistor, is an SMT resistor, then it is a 2 joint. So I told in an average there are 600 components. You imagine for an IC, if it's a Texas Instrument IC, I have 124 leads. So that means I have 124 joints. See, the complexity increases. Yeah. So for an understanding, let's imagine that we have an average 4 joints for every component. So 600 into 4. Okay, it's simply 240. For 240 for every single PCBA, which get passed, will have a throughput within 7 or 8 seconds. So that 240,000 bits of information about the solder quality, okay, offset in the solder, dry solder. So in case of the solder insufficiency, all these informations are available in our MES server.
So we have multi-location plants in India and abroad. The Superis acquired many companies, and it has added a lot of complexities. So we believe in lean manufacturing, and we wanted to have our teams lean. While coming to the smart manufacturing, it's what we believe is, if you can't measure, you cannot act. Okay, first we wanted to measure what we wanted to do. Now if you see, we have a multi-location, multi-customer things. So the product what we are manufacturing, we may be manufacturing somewhere else. So first what we did in 2015 and 16, so have all the database of products. So while doing that, we understand that we have more than 1 lakh parts and subcomponents, and we have 60,000 plus FG parts. And by beginning that, we have reduced almost 14 to 15,000 parts we found is a duplicate parts. Okay, I think you know the automotive terms. It's, if you want to develop one part, it takes a lot of time, energy, cost. Okay, so and there is a term called PPAP. So you have to be parts to be approved before going for a production. Okay, if unknowingly you are creating one more part, it will add a lot of cost. Okay, and the delays will start happening. So for overcome that, we have started implementing on the PLM, so centralized PLM. So these things were hosted on AWS in 2016, and by doing that, we have reduced the cycle time drastically. And we are in a mass production, so the quantities we are manufacturing in crores, not in lakhs, in crores. One of our plants produces almost 1 to 1.2 lakh products, FG products per day, one plant. So imagine we have 30 plants, and we have more than 1,000 suppliers. So if you save single paisa also, it will be in crores in a year. Okay, so to overcome that, we have implemented our PLM so that the parts cannot be duplicated. So smart manufacturing, it's not about only talking about smart, but we have a lot of interconnected departments. Like it start with this concept to the FG. Okay, so we are bringing the concept. We have started utilizing the tools like ANSYS, so where we can able to reduce the material cost. Okay, reduce the cycle times of the manufacturing, so that in a lesser time we can able to manufacture in a quicker way. Okay, so that we already started, and as I said earlier, so if you can't measure, you cannot able to act on that. So the workforce what we have, so if you're not able to visualize them what they are doing and how they are and where they are, so it's difficult them to convey, because if you have so many data and if you are put in Excel, no use. So if you see the Japanese or Toyota people how they do it, so you have to visualize that. So that concept we are following now, and in shop floors we are putting a big pictures so that the people can able to understand the data. Okay, so what OE they are getting, where they stand. For example, in a plant I have 60-70 lines. So what is your line performance? Okay, not go in depth, only just show what is your rank, how you are, or where, what is your OE. So based on that, it start thinking the operator or the line leaders, so improve on their lines.
How does an implementation of MES aligns with the customer's corporate strategy, business outcomes? Could you share some examples of your customers benefiting from this?
Sure. First, I love sitting in sessions like this because I get to hear from my customers. The good news is we all kind of wrestle with the same challenges, right? The good news is you're not in it alone. I've heard kind of the same themes over and over. The challenge around visibility. How do I track and trace, and how do I pinpoint things that are happening in my operations? Without sounding like we're giving a software commercial here, one of the things that we really focus on with our customers is, because you're all wrestling with the same challenges, there is a level of maturity that's important to understand. Each customer is at a different point in their life cycle. It is interesting. I will tell you, many of you are from the automotive industry, not all of you, but many, which is a large portion of our customer base. We work with food and beverage, automotive, are our two biggest industries. What we find when we talk digital transformation, we go into the customer's manufacturing operations, and what we find is there's still a lot of things that are done extremely manually, disparate systems that don't talk. So when you talk about trying to make intelligent decisions and get at the data, it's pretty difficult to get at the data if you're doing things manually and you have processes that, one, aren't automated, and systems that don't work together.
Could you share some of the examples of integrating smart MES solutions and how it has improved the quality, operational excellence in your organization?
So one plant we started to integrate the MES, because on a product multiple departments are connected. Like it's start from the procurement, development, the manufacturing, the quality, the FG parts. So how the MES is helping us to do the things is, so when any product is happening, or when you see the per hour we have a targets. Okay, so to achieve the target, everyone has to contribute. Not only about the manufacturing, the guy is responsible, even though the top management and supporting functions has to be there. Mm-hmm. Now, for example, because we are using almost 90% of our parts are sourced. So not manufacturing, we are assembling the parts. Okay, where the supplier and the supply chain is a key role for them. Okay, if any problem occurring, so it should be immediately reflected to them. So it should be intimated them. They're saying that yes, this part has some issue. So immediately they have to rectify, because we are using assembly lines. If any one assembly process or some product have going down, the entire assembly line is going affected. And our assembly line, the cycle time is approximately 6 seconds minimum to maximum 9 seconds. So that means one assembly line is producing a part at every 6 seconds we are getting output. Okay, so in that manner we are working. So if something goes wrong, is immediately the people should rush to that point and identify to resolve that issue. So these MES things are supporting them, and we have connected all the processes to using the pages and sensors, and any abnormality is happening, immediately we will get an alert message to our mails and to our mobiles. So the concerned persons are getting the alerts from the system automatically. If the line is getting stopped for 5 minutes, it will get alert. If it is stopped for 15 minutes, it will get escalated to the next level. So like that we have mentioned a system, and it will auto tell you what is your loss. I mentioned you that every 6 seconds I am getting one part. So if your line is stopped for 10 minutes, what is the loss it's making? Because I have mentioned a productivity. So how the productivity is coming based on the what parts I am manufacturing. Not only manufacturing, what good parts or okay parts I am manufacturing. Okay, so it's all integrated. So using this terminology called productivity, so these all departments were making sure that it's contributed, and it's and if any abnormalities, they have to act on that. So every day we are doing this analysis, and weekly, monthly, and these things were added in their KPIs. If the line is stopped, so who is going to responsible, and we're telling them who is for which reason the line has stopped. Okay, and who is responsible. By identifying these, so we're minimizing the line downtimes.
The maturity of the organization, how to assess the readiness of the customers, and how do you actually go about assessing the maturity and the readiness of your customers to adopt technologies, to implement MES? Could you share some examples?
I think every customer is different, everyone's journey is different, right? So it's about sitting and analyzing what part of journey they are in, right? So once we figure out that one, it's some kind of a hand-holding which is required, some kind of a consulting, right? Talking through the entire journey, right? And then understanding maybe from them, where do they want to start and where do they think they will see the immediate benefit, right? Because ROI, right, and 10x, right? I heard every penny spent, right? You need 10x output, right? So where do you get that 10x output first, right? So maybe doing that exercise, understanding that, and then maybe picking that area, right? And maybe 2 other areas, and having a discussion across the board, right? So maturity, it comes from everyone, right? From the management, from the people on the shop floor. That's also very important, right? If they do not come along and want to see that transformation happen, or if they feel threatened by that transformation, right? So that can be a disaster, right? None of your data is going to come right, right? Right? So you can yeah, right? So hence my view is, I think, compartmentalizing, right, these issues, right, and picking up the priority, and talking to, right, I think solution providers, right, and maybe look for a very modular solution, right? So, but when you look at a modular solution, what you need to do is you should also look at the bigger picture, right? Start small, start modular, but in 2 years, 3 years, right, whatever, right, is your vision, are you able to get to that vision in those 3 years, right, step by step, right? So picking that partner is a very important step, right, according to me, because otherwise you will get into those integration challenges that Neeraj was talking about, right? And I heard it from others as well, right? Yeah. So hence a digital strategy is important.
I would request Frederick's summary of the discussion and his words of wisdom for the direction.
Thank you all for doing this. I do think it's extremely valuable to get peers in the room and be able to hear what we're struggling with, things we've done to improve. So there is a ton of value in these sessions, but I do know it's time away from home and time away from other things that you could be doing. Maybe I'll start also with the bad news. Like, there is no easy button. I think people think I'll just digitally transform and the world's going to be a better place. I wish I could tell you, just implement our MES solution and things will be perfect, but that would be disingenuous. The good news is, with things like smart manufacturing and digital transformation, there are huge return for your businesses that you can find. I think the key, and it's been said a lot this evening, is each company is different. You're all in different situations. So start with, what are the biggest problems we're wrestling with? Which ones have the biggest return? If I can solve this problem, start there, and those are the problems you tackle first. And find the right partners. Whether it's Rockwell or other people in the industry, there's a lot of really good expertise in the industry.